some more.
Yo, what's going on, people? Izzy Max here, back with the Breakdown crew. How you guys doing?
Doing fine. Got a shorter bit this week.
Yeah, this is going to be a short week. So this is the first week of bye weeks. We only have 4 matches, and they are kind of a doozy this week. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump in them. So the first match we have is Matt and Noah. Ryan, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so Matt and Noah's set was pretty interesting. One of the big things that I think kind of caught Noah off guard was he forgot about Propeller Tail on Barraskewda, letting Matt get around Storm Drain, which allowed Matt to pick up a ton of momentum. That said, though, Noah brought Rotom Heat, which I thought was good overall, but like in the end, he didn't really bring the tools to stop Metagross from kind of going in. And Metagross was very good against what he brought outside of Rotom Heat, I feel like, by and large. Obviously, Alolan, Dugtrio, and Gastrodon can do some stuff there, but neither one really has the stat spread to take +2 hits on Metagross, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I really like the Gourgeist Spring. I actually think it was funny. Matt, you ally switch turn 1, and I feel like that turn 1 would have gone way better if you had just Shadow Sneaked your Metagross and gone for the kill. That said, it was a pretty good set. I think one of Noah's biggest issues, and we've mentioned this before, and it's still recurring though, is that Noah's playing fine. It's not play, it's more so that like he's not aware of the tools that his opponent can have. He's forgotten about other things in the past with his opponents, in this case, the Propeller Tail. Honestly, that's something like I would miss, probably, if I'm being totally honest with you. I forgot about Snipe Shot this week, ignoring redirection, so like I'm one to talk, I know. But there is an element of, to me, it doesn't always feel like Noah is quite bringing the things he needs to deal with some of those threats. We got to see his sets, and I actually really like a lot of the sets he brought. I just feel like they were not the correct sets for this match, I think, and I think that's why the numbers are what they are on this one.
Yeah, so looking at what Matt actually brought, I'm surprised Weavile didn't show up.
Yeah, me too.
Matt, I'm honestly surprised you brought both grass types along with Metagross, because you did say that you like hard prepped for the Rotom. Other than that, like you only have Barraskewda to really deal with it on an offensive end. So that was really surprising, but I mean, you played it perfectly. I do believe you put yourself in very good positions. Like Ryan said, the turn 1 ally switch was kind of funny. I don't know if Noah was calling it out or if he was just like, nah, Gourgeist is going to be the issue because I have Gastrodon in the back. I have no idea, but I honestly laughed when I seen it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of chuckled. Well, it was also kind of interesting to me because I feel like, to me too, like the self-proc Shadow Sneak is kind of like an obvious play almost.
Mm-hmm.
Not like in a mean way, just in like I think that's a kind of play that you can expect somebody to make if they have a Metagross.
Yeah.
You're probably going to either Brutal Swing it with Torn or Shadow Sneak it with the Gourgeist. So if I see that lead, I'm personally always going to target down. And so if that's a priority move, I mean, what good do you get out of targeting down a Gourgeist that already did its job?
Yeah, target down the threat. And then we've seen how much damage it actually did to the Metagross. So, and that leads me again to, I don't know why Weavile didn't come. You know, it hits Torn, it hits Metagross, it hits the 2 grass types.
Yeah,
no, I get it. It's frail. Too. Yeah, I get it. It's frail, but I mean, you can still put in a lot of work with the Weavile.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually really like the Alolan Dugtrio here. The more I thought about it, the more I really liked that bring. I thought it was really smart overall. That said, though, I do think Noah also, not for this week, because obviously Metagross is the big threat and it's a big steel type boy. But I do think Noah needs to like start bringing Sylveon
and Salamence.
And Salamence, I feel like those 2 mons are kind of getting underutilized on his draft a little bit. Especially Sylveon. I don't think he's ever brought it. And that mon is like, I mean, you're kind of wasting a really, really, really strong T2 if you're not bringing that thing, I think.
Yeah, and he's always bringing weakness policy T-Tar, right? It's probably the best set you can run on a T-Tar in like a VGC setting. So why not just max it and quick attack it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, that's just kind of just some things I've noticed. I think Hunter's playing fine.
This is Noah.
Or Noah. Sorry, my brain is dead today. I think he's playing fine. It's just that this was kind of a set where Matt kind of exploited some of the patterns that we've kind of been noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of let him take the win, because it honestly was not a great matchup for Matt on paper
Right.
in a lot of ways.
Yep. So Matt, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of this just came down to how well I ended up knowing the matchup once I got to the battle. I put in a tremendous amount of prep for this one, mostly just because of the Rotom Heat, because I needed to figure out exactly how to beat it, because it was just, I don't think in any draft league I've ever been in, I don't think I've ever had a matchup as bad as this against just one single Pokemon. Yeah, I mean, I had a solid game plan. I kind of knew I knew the flow of the matchup. I knew what I wanted my team to do, and it worked out pretty well. So I'd actually I actually kind of wish that he did bring the Weavile, because I mean, even though I had both of my grass types here, Gourgeist only came to one game, and the Serena didn't come at all. So which I did have another game plan that involved bringing Serena, but between the Metagross not taking a huge amount of damage from Weavile, especially if I can get a Steel Spike boost,
Right.
and the redirection from Clefable and Barraskewda being faster with Brick Break, actually had a pretty good matchup against that Weavile. So I wouldn't have minded him bringing it at all. I did. I expected to see it in team preview at the very least. I got 4 out of his 6 Mons correct, I think. Only the Dugtrio and the Roserade were the Mons that I did not expect to see. I expected to see the Morgrim and the Galarian Zapdos, so which was actually kind of a relief, because those were sort of causing some problems in my prep. But the sleep powder was also unexpected, so
For sure.
but I managed to play around that. So
Yep.
I think it was a good game. I think I think it was mainly just a big part of it was my prep and just knowing the matchup really well.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think the big momentum turner I don't remember what game it was, but he put your Clefable to sleep, and then he doubled the Metagross while you protected and swapped in the Tornadus. And then you were able to just get the Tailwind off and just kind of sweep.
Yeah. Oh, well, he actually went for a Max Flare into the Clefable, and my Tornadus tanked it.
That's what it was. Yeah, but then he targeted the Sleep Powder into the Metagross.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what it was.
Yeah, and then at that point, once I called the Max Guard on the Rotom, and I Tailwinded and just killed the Roserade, it was kind of game over from there, since I had Weather Ball to take care of the Dugtrio.
That Weather Ball tech was so good. I was real happy we got to see it. I always love a good Weather Ball usage.
For sure.
Oh, me too.
It's kind of a fun move, and it has it's very viable, but it's kind of inconsistent. So it's fun when you see somebody get away with something like that in draft. I actually think that was my favorite turn of the game. Yeah, in game 2, he had you a little bit more on the ropes, but you kind of played around that really nicely. If I were him, I actually probably would have just sleep powdered the same slot that was already asleep, predicting a switch. But that's kind of a hard read to make, and if you don't get it right, then you just wasted a turn. So
well, the problem with that, it wasn't
understand.
really a hard read, because you could hit the Metagross.
Mm-hmm.
And the Max Flare went into the Clefable slot. Clefable was asleep; it wasn't doing anything.
Right.
So if you would have just double targeted into the Metagross or anything else, I get it, you had to read the protect, but the flare into that slot was kind of odd. If you're gonna flare that slot, you double that slot.
Mm-hmm.
At least I would. That would be how I would play if I'm calling the protect. Because if you don't think he's going to protect, you're going to flare the Metagross. So he obviously knew that the Metagross was going to protect. I don't know if he was hedging his bets or what, but that would be just the way I would think of it.
It is also just difficult to consider every little tiny factor
for sure.
when you're in the moment.
Yeah,
You only have
2020.
45 seconds to choose.
Yeah,
so.
you have 20 seconds to make those kind of plays, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to. It's so hard to. Everybody misplays. That's
Oh yeah,
not a
yeah.
huge
Like
issue.
I said, hindsight 2020. I'm just, if you're gonna
Yeah,
call the protect,
right.
just hard call it, I guess.
Yeah, it just is what it is.
Yeah. So the next match here, I'll cover this one. This one was Ryan against Dark King. Crocodile took some hits. Crocodile was actually big in this. Honestly, I forgot that he even had Drampa on his draft. So it put in some work. I think it was AV Drampa with a whole lot of coverage. And,
yeah, it was AV.
It was theoretically the only thing that got kills. I mean, Weezing got some kills, but it was Levitate, and it was just kind of you outbulked him in one game, and then you just outsped him in in the other. We see that the Crocodile got 2 kills and the Drifblim got 3, and then 1 kill each for the other mons except Heatran. So yeah, that's kind of what it shows. It just shows that in one game you outbulked him with Crocodile, and in the other game you outsped him and just kind of out-offensed him with the Drifblim. That's really all I can say for this one.
Yeah, Matt, do you have anything to add?
I think it's pretty straightforward. It was kind of just a Max Crocodile game and or a Max Drifblim game first, and then a Max Crocodile game second. They were clearly the stars of the show. Crocodiles, yeah, I was surprised at the hits it was taking, even though you were AV and you had the Eerie Impulse, and I get why, but it's still kind of surprising.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty straightforward. I think this sort of displayed some of the weaknesses of Dark King's team, and I think this is part of the reason why he made the transactions that he did. So we'll talk about that.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say this does continue the tradition of picking up a transaction mon, you guys being like, I'm not sure, and then it doing a lot of work. So I just have to say I'm 2 for 2 on that. Nice job, Crocodile Boy. He did it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm on Dark King's side. I am glad to finally see the Aleki. Granted, it didn't get to do much. It got faked out and then obliterated. Like, you can't do it.
Aleki was a huge threat. If I did not fake it out and KO it that turn, it did a lot of damage to Drifblim.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't really say anything. Like, you can't dog on him for getting faked out and then obliterated with the Aleki.
Oh yeah,
like,
no,
that just happens.
That was a very conscientious play.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't scare him from bringing Aleki in the future. That thing is such a good mon.
Oh yeah, no, it's real strong. The reason I targeted it down was because it was such a big threat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Matt, or we'll move on?
Not really. I also like seeing Reggie Aleki come out. I feel like it's been a little bit underutilized on his draft, especially considering it was his first overall pick, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to see it come out more in the future. It'll that plus that and the Celesteela, I think, have been kind of underutilized. So I think if he uses those two to greater effect and his transactions work out, I think he can turn this around.
Yeah, we'll get to those in here coming up soon. I think the transactions will help that a lot. But coming in on the next one, Matt, you can take it. Me versus Hunter.
All right, so this was clearly the best game of the week. It was down to the wire. Went to game 3. It was kind of just. I feel like clearly this is kind of the same story we've been seeing from Hunter's team. Ice Horse is the star of the show. which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. But I do also feel like if it had a better supporting cast, I think Hunter definitely could have taken this one, given how close it actually was. It was kind of a matter of your colossal in the first game not exactly cutting it, and then I really loved your adjustment to the Tapu Bulu in game 2 and 3. Bulu really with the redirection, it allowed you to be protected from those big ice hits from the Glastrier. Because Bulu is a grass type, you were able to ignore redirection from the Fungus, which meant that whether you were maxed or not, you had something big to hit the Dusclops with. You had a big Life Orb Max Darkness, or you had the Taunt, which I think was a great tech. Clearly worked out, especially in game 2. I think you taunted the Dusclops on turn 1.
Yep.
When it was trying to Trick Room. Yeah, I think that there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of Ice Horse almost pulled it out. A couple of times, and I think the end game in game 3 was especially interesting. I think if he had clearly Hunter was expecting an ally switch. I think when you had the Blastoise and Shedinja on the field, if he had just swapped his targeting and crunched into the Blastoise instead, I think he probably actually won, because he whether you ally switched or not, he was getting a KO either way. And at that point, given the damage that the Poltergeist was doing to the Glastrier, I think it actually survives 2 of them with a little bit of Life Orb chip. So I think he barely could have eked it out there if he had just swapped his targeting on that turn before the Glastrier fell asleep, because we did see it got a 1-turn sleep as well, which it would have needed to if he had made that play. So really close game. I got to give props to both of you guys. This is one of my favorite games that we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, I'll just second the thoughts. Really good games. Hunter's been playing really well. His games have been pretty consistent. I know he's lost 2 weeks in a row, but like they were not, they were best of 3 sets that were down to the wire, both of them. So he's playing real well. I do have to compliment. I thought Hunter's idea for a weakness policy Sandaconda was actually really smart. Because if Maxwell, you had gone for more of your usual modes, I feel like that would have kind of failed. Would have kind of done a lot of good work for you. I also like that Hunter pretty smartly predicted Shedinja coming. The crunch on the Glastrier, the Stovalley had Rock Slide, and so did Sandaconda, and the Dusclops could hit it. He basically made sure every single Mon could hit Shedinja, and still somehow things weren't hitting Shedinja. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I do like some of the decisions that Hunter made in prep, especially the crunch on the Glastrier and the fairy type Sylvali too.
Was really good, yeah.
Yeah, even the absorb tech on the Fungus for the policy on the Sandaconda was kind of fun. The only thing that I think was missing was probably a sludge bomb from the Fungus. Obviously, yeah. Fungus isn't all that strong, but when Bulu's taking Woodhammer recoil, you can probably pick up a KO after enough of that. So yeah. I think that would have helped him quite a bit there.
So is no one going to bring up the flip turn tech?
The flip turn tech was cool. I liked it.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely it's actually one of my favorite kinds of strategies. The whole switching move into weakness policy,
into redirector.
Yeah, it's if you can get that combination off, it's one of the strongest things you can possibly do in a Dynamax format.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No, I thought that was really good. You haven't done that yet. I've been kind of waiting for it for a couple weeks. But, like, truthfully, I figured you'd do it at some point.
Yeah. So yeah, the game plan was in this was to always lead Colossal Blastoise game 1. And this was in order to scare him from ever bringing Glastrier game 1. And I talked about this before we started recording. My game plan into this was not to stop Glastrier. My game plan into this was to stop everything around Glastrier, knowing it couldn't double target. It doesn't get Rock Slide. I don't know if it gets Earthquake, but he wouldn't want to be Earthquaking his own Mons. With that being said, I did exactly that. I stopped pretty much everything else from doing anything. The Dusclops, I think, picked up a petty kill with a Nightshade, but
yeah, it did.
But other than that, my game plan went off pretty well without a hitch. I knew I wasn't going to blow him out of the water in 2 games. Game 1 was unfortunate. If the proc policies would have been flipped and I would have got I would have got leftovers before hail damage, I would have won game 1 off the back of bulky Blastoise. But that's not how that stuff works. So no, they were good. They were good matches. I was surprised how much work Bulu put in. That is something that wasn't actually in my game plan, was maxing the Bulu. But it worked really, really well. So I'll take it.
Sometimes you have to go off your beaten path a little bit.
Yeah, no, procs to Bulu and props to Shedinja for doing so much damage and just not dying. Seeing how much tech after he released his team paste, how much tech he actually had for the Shedinja, I was really, really surprised that it didn't die.
It did. It didn't die and did anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, the safety goggles, I think, was very key.
Yes, it was. It was smart of you to run safety over Sash.
Oh, for sure.
Of course.
And then the choice band on the Urshifu, in theory, looked really, really good. It secured me 1-shots. I honestly was not expecting Fairy Silvally. I was expecting Water, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the Fairy threw me off, and then the turn where he was expecting me to switch up because he didn't know I was choice banned yet. I had to switch out the Urshifu because I was locked into Wicked Blow.
Mm-hmm.
And he played very well. I honestly think I had a better game plan of dealing with the horse and just not dealing with it.
Yeah, Hunter has not an issue. It's obviously not as bad as Dark issue with Gigas Weezing, because Gigas Weezing wasn't actually doing a whole lot. Horse is doing a ton. It has like 18 kills or something. But Horse has a similar-ish problem at times where people are starting to get a game plan for it a little bit more. It was discovered during my set with Hunter that a really good bulky water just kind of shuts that thing down. And you kind of leaned into that a bit, Maxwell.
It's like my Blastoise and your Vaporeon were almost the same set.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of lean into something similar to that, you also had the Bandit Urshifu, which can borderline one-hit KO it, kind of similar to the Surfetch. So you see that both games that Hunter has lost were games where his opponent had good Glastrier answers really hard built into the team off the bat. And I do think that is a factor in the loss this week. I think it was still a great game.
Oh, for
I think
sure.
Hunter's still prepping out his mind. I thought a lot of the tech was really creative this week on his end especially. But I am going to go ahead and put it out there that, like, for other coaches that have to play Hunter in the future, obviously you need a plan for Horse, but I think it's becoming more apparent what those plans should start to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And that might actually affect his momentum a little bit. So that's also kind of a warning to Hunter on people starting to catch on a little bit to what can happen.
For sure, for sure. Any last words, Matt?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it. It's sort of apparent what these Glastrier answers should start to look like. The whole bulky water with Yawn thing is definitely a great answer, especially if it's just a pure water type. Then you're not adding any types that Glastrier can hit super effectively. So But I also still want to encourage people to get creative with their class tree answers, especially if they don't have something like that. It's not as if
absolutely.
that's the only thing that can work for that. If you've got something else that can stop the horse, we want to see that too.
Please do it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Please bring your ducks.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that's a good example. So I think this is just a reminder that you can still get creative with that thing, and it's also, I guess, sort of a message to Hunter that maybe you in your future transactions, maybe you want to focus on getting something that can help against those bulky waters, at least for ones that you might have to play in the future.
For sure. So, last game of the week. I will go ahead and lead this one off. Double check your Pokemon before you go into the game. That is so big. So, you look at this and you're like, "Oh, wow. That's a blowout." Yes, it was. What happened, and it's not going to change the outcome of the game. I still think Hub loses, just not in a 6-0 fashion. Cinderace only had 3 moves. It was missing Sucker Punch, which was kind of the key to her plan. She knew that the double Genie was going to come, and it would be a likely lead into what she was bringing. So her plan was to Sucker Punch the Thundurus, which had the speed control, and then with an Adamant Max Attack Weakness Policy Lapras, Ice Shard the Thundurus, live a hit from the banded... dang it, what's the other one? Thundurus, Landorus, and then kill it with the Ice Shard return. So that was kind of the plan. Didn't work out, and she had to max. She ended up maxing the Cinderace out of kind of, I don't want to say fear, but like she tried to max it in order to live the double target from the Electro Web and the Earthquake. It just didn't live, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Dan played out of his mind. Like, he knew what to do. The double the double choice genies, the rain mode, and then the electric terrain mode. All 3 modes are very hard to counter at once.
even with the missing tech, I never see a world in which Hub win. Like, with what she brought, even with the missing tech, it's definitely closer. And it's not a 6. It's not a 6.
No, it's probably going to look more like a 3-0.
3-0, but she still loses very hard. Dan prepped and played so well on this one and had such a good game plan going in against a really hard team to beat.
For sure. Going into game 2, I will say Pangoro did have some 3v1 capability.
It actually did, yeah. No, this was kind of, it was a little unfortunate that the numbers are what they are, but the set, it was always going to be the set, is how I kind of view this one. And I think Dan is just continually showing
he's getting better, which is terrifying.
Yeah, he's getting a lot better, actually. His play was a lot better. I think this is the best prep he's had too, hands down. This was some of his best prep. He's utilizing his new Mon really well as well, which I'm really excited to see. I actually always thought Thundurus had some good potential, but I've never really seen it kind of live up to that, and he's kind of doing it, and that made me real happy. I thought the physical Coco was a super, super bright idea. So yeah, no, just props to him. I think this was a really good win.
Matt?
Yeah, I think there's not a whole lot more to say about this one. It's I definitely agree. This is the best prep we've seen from Dan. I think the 2 modes that he brought, basically calling the leads 100% correctly, both games, was really impressive, and having a game plan to counter both of them, especially with the physical Coco, that was pretty impressive.
I think the physical Coco was the most thing that was like out of left field. You never really see physical Coco.
Right, and I think that was the number one thing that Hub was probably not going to be able to handle.
Yes.
Because I could see her doing okay if she had that Sucker Punch, but like you said, I think the results is still the same, even if the differential is different. Mostly, and I think the physical Coco is a huge part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like if that wasn't physical Coco, he doesn't really kill Venusaur.
Ever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that was kind of the big reason why she brought it. She's like, okay, he doesn't really have an answer to it outside of a max on one of the genies because they were choiced. And if he maxed either of them, Venusaur is faster. So yeah, the physical Coco definitely threw her off, but yeah, there wasn't a world where she wins this. There is a world where it comes closer.
Right. Always check your mons, folks.
Always check your mons. I think this happened. I think this is the 4th time it's happened in the 2 seasons.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
we've had issues with this in the past, so.
Yeah, so moving on to transactions, we've already talked about them being kind of big this week. Leading it off is Dark King. So he didn't make one last week for a reason. We gave him the okay to drop both of these in 1 week if he skipped a transaction, which he did last week. And he's dropping Regigigas and Weezing for Galarian Darm and Mudsdale. What are you guys' thoughts?
I like it. Overall, Matt?
Yeah, I think dropping the Reggie and the Weezing is probably more important than what he ended up picking up.
For sure.
I'm not really sure what I would actually pick up in place of those if I were him. I'd have to look more closely at what's left and what fits with his team. I'm curious to see how this affects his team comp. I think it's the Galarian Darmanitan at least sort of replaces the Regigigas in that it's something with a huge amount of offense, but it doesn't need a specific mon to be sitting next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then the Mudsdale I think gives him a little bit of extra typing synergy, at least with the Celesteela. It gives him an electric switch in. I don't think it's super obvious to me, at least at first glance, how these Pokemon fit with his team and what he wants to do with them. I'd have to look into it a little bit more deeply, but I'm definitely curious to see how he's going to use these. And like I said when we were talking about his match, I think if these turn out to be the transactions that he needed, and he starts making better use of the Regieleki and the Celesteela, I think he can definitely start picking up the wins that he needs.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is more of a trade for the rest of his team, not so much for an upgrade of Mons. Gigas Weezing was definitely a hard lock on his team, and dropping those for these, I think, is going to open up a lot of things.
Yeah, it's real interesting how Gigas Weezing kind of turned out this season a little bit to me.
Mm-hmm.
It seems so potent on paper, but in practice, it just wasn't able to do what it needed to, just because draft formats are so different. And it makes me wonder how we need to rate it next season.
For sure,
because it's such a weird combo like that.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have Scolipede for Berserker. This is part of a 2-week trade. Last week, he did drop Bronzong for Sableye, and now he's dropping Scolipede for Berserker. I just like this trade. I like Berserker. It's a fan favorite of mine. I used it last season, and it hit surprising numbers, did surprising things, gets Fake Out. Steely Spirit's pretty cool. I think this is honestly just going to kind of unlock some more things for him. He was never bringing Scolipede. It shared weaknesses with some of his main threats and mons that he likes to bring. So overall, I just like this.
Yeah, I think it's good in that he's replacing the Steel type that he dropped last time when he got rid of the Bronzong. One of the things that I liked about Tay's lower tier picks, like the Scolipede and the Zoroark, is that even though they're lower tier mons, they are they're kind of threatening because just because of specific niche things they can do. If you let Scolipede get set up, whether it wants to sweep itself or just baton pass into something even stronger, it's a real problem. But I don't think we ever even saw the Scolipede in team preview.
Nope.
So I feel like if it's something that you're not bringing, then it's probably not, even if it's forcing attention and prep from your opponents, it's probably not as good as something that you're actually more willing to have hit the field. So I think this is overall a positive trade because of that.
For sure. Ryan, you want to take next?
Yeah, Miltank for Unpheasant. I actually like this trade. Miltank was not doing much of anything on this team. I think it's a good mon, but it just wasn't doing a whole lot for this team. Unpheasant gives Hunter a Tailwind option, which is good. It also gives him kind of a discount kiss. Hunter's team really does not like fighting types, and while Unpheasant gets hit neutrally by fighting types, it can hit them back at least a little bit. I still do think, though, that I still think Hunter, Matt, you mentioned it earlier, and I actually agree. I think Hunter needs a way to deal with bulky water types still, like a real good answer for that kind of thing, because currently he doesn't still, and that is kind of a weakness of his team.
Does he not have an electric
He also doesn't
type?
care. I don't believe so. He also doesn't care for dark types very much either. You can hit a lot of his team with dark type moves pretty well.
Yep.
So I feel like some things for that would be maybe better than an Unpheasant, but I still like it fine. I think it definitely still serves a purpose and has a niche on this team. So I'm excited to see him use it. I think it's a good mon.
Yeah, I think it's still overall it's a positive trade. But I don't think it's the trades. It's the kind of trade he needs to be making. I think he needs to be replacing some some stuff that's higher than tier 4 at least. We made a few suggestions for kind of the direction that he might want to take the team and what holes he might need to patch up. I think the two biggest ones in my mind are getting something to deal with bulky waters and trying to bolster the fast mode a little bit so that Dragapult's not out there doing all of that work on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unpheasant, I think, does help with that. I think it does help with the fast mode, and it also helps with fighting types. So I still think this is overall good. But yeah, I do think Hunter needs to make probably just one more transaction, maybe two, but I think that last transaction needs to be kind of
an electric type.
It needs to be an electric type and kind of a bigger option. I think something that's a little bit more on the table. Not that Hunter's doing poorly at all this season, but he's actually played crazy well. So maybe we're just kind of talking out of our asses here.
Well, the thing is, the minute he doesn't put all the offensive pressure on Glacier is the minute I think he becomes damn near unbeatable.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That's kind of what we're talking about here. The next trade is Vulpix for Pillow-Swine. Vulpix was useless.
Yeah.
She picked up Riolu, which was kind of big, but Vulpix had no business being there. So I don't really think there's anything else to say here. She didn't have a ground type. Vulpix was useless.
Yep, she has one now, and an ice type, which is nice. So.
Yeah. Matt, you want to take the next one?
Sure, yeah. So Aegislash for Lucario also I think is a good trade, especially because Aegislash just wasn't coming for maybe sort of obvious reasons. I think anybody who played before Generation 8 knows how powerful Aegislash has been in the past.
It just ain't.
Yeah, it's
and
just
how it's fallen from grace.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be. Between the stat nerfs and the
Dynamax
not being a great Dynamax candidate, it's just a little awkward to use. I think Lucario is, generally speaking, it's a better steel type. It doesn't offer the same kind of bulk that Aegislash has. But I think it's more likely to hit the field, and I think it gives you some more options than Aegislash offers.
Yeah, and you can at least max a Lucario.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to think, because last season Brock had Aegislash, and I helped Brock out with a lot of his team stuff, and we quickly realized that we needed to get Aegislash off the team. It was just... It's real funny to me that it's been dropped 2 seasons in a row. If you're interested in it, pick it up. I mean, on paper, it always looks really good. But then in practice, it's actually one of the worst mons I've ever used. So
it's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
I think it's honestly, it's speed tier.
It is.
Yeah, with the nerf and stats, the speed tier just doesn't cut it. And then lastly, we got Dan dropping Ludicolo for Regirock. He did say that this was part of a 2-week transaction period because his bye week is next week, but he's dropping his rain mode. What do you guys think?
I just need to see what other mon he's going to drop. I'm assuming the other drop is Nihilego, because then he'd have 2 rock types and his team would be extremely ground weak. So I'm assuming Nihilego's the other mon that's going. So we'll just kind of wait and see. I also don't 100% know how to feel yet because we don't have that other half, but I was actually commenting prior to the vid that I think Dan has plenty of good Dynamax options, and I don't really feel like Regirock adds anything that like maybe Landorus isn't or something like that. But like we'll wait and see because I do trust in whatever he has planned.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I want to see what his other pick is. I think it's likely that the one that's dropped is Nihilego, but as far as what he's going to pick up in place of that, I have no idea. But I'm interested to see. I also think it's interesting to see that the player at the top of the standings is making so many transactions, because it didn't really seem clear to me that his team had a lot that was wrong with it. Which usually you expect a lot of transactions from somebody that's needing to fix their team and patch up holes, and I don't feel like he really ever needed to do that, and yet he's making a lot of transactions and still continuing to win all of his matches. So I think that's a bit interesting and unexpected from my perspective.
Yeah, and to wrap this up, going off something you said, the top teams are kind of the ones making transactions, and they're just getting better, you know? Dan, me, Jessica, Hunter, Tay, and Dark understand they need to make trades. If you're one of those bottom teams, you need to probably make some trades. If you continue to struggle, there is clearly something wrong, and you need to figure it out. This is not a bash at the teams who are at the bottom, because nobody's playing bad. Everybody's playing very good. It's just, if you're not winning games, there's probably something wrong. You need to take a look at your team and figure out what is wrong with it. A couple of the teams at the bottom are not making changes, and I feel like they need to. But that's just my opinion. You can take that as you will. Dissect your team if you want. Like I said, nobody's playing bad. It's just the league is growing in strength, and the people who aren't growing with it are kind of getting left behind.
Yeah. One thing I would like to add, just talking next week, actually. Next week is kind of an interesting week in terms of standings, actually, because it's another bye week. And so currently the top 4 are currently us 3 and Dan. Mm-hmm. Dan is number 1, and then us 3 in an order. So like that's kind of like the top 4 right now. Dan's 4-0. We're all 3-1. That said, next week is really odd because you two both play again, so you can potentially end up being maybe 4-1. But outside of that,
you don't.
I don't play next week, thank God. But one thing that's interesting about next week in particular is that it's kind of for a lot of those players, it kind of lets them get into sort of middle rankings, but a lot of them can't place top except for one player, which is Toxic. Toxic can potentially end up with a 3-1, which then puts him near the top. Everyone else that is playing that week is either at 2-2 or at 1-2, I believe, if I remember looking at the list correctly. The only one that's 2-1 is Toxic. So Toxic can potentially actually...
And he plays me.
Yeah, and Toxic can potentially bump up quite a bit and actually knock you down. So I think that's actually the match to watch next week, of all of them, in terms of like standings and playoffs and stuff like that. Because there's some other people not playing, like Hunter and I aren't playing next week, and I think Dan isn't playing.
Dan isn't playing, no.
His partner is. So there is going to be kind of a gap week there for those players, but like because we have the bye weeks, I do think I want to comment at the end of this one on kind of where people kind of stand, since it'll start getting a little bit trickier to tell.
Yep. And then the week 6 is going to be kind of the last hoorah. I do believe, and this is going to be kind of a hot take, playoffs will probably be set, if not permanently pretty dang close after week 6. We're starting to get into that point where some teams just don't have what it takes to climb out.
Yeah, differential and losses are starting to pile up a little bit. So
Yep.
if you're one of the people that is in that situation, like we said, start making transactions. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice we truly have, is just start making transactions, and make sure you know what your opponent has and come in with a good plan.
Yep. So that's it for me. Matt, you got anything else to say?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys were saying about transactions, and considering we only have 2 more transactions available, if you're one of the people that needs to get on it quick.
Yep. And if any of these coaches need help, reach out. We are more than happy to help.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yep. So without further ado, we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.